Well, thank you very much for being here to this new Spotlight interview. We are very excited to have with us Dr. Jiri Hulcr, who is an associate professor at the School of Forest Resources and Conservation in the University of Florida.
Hello, Gabriel. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's a pleasure. I'm really excited. So Jiri is originally from the Czech Republic, where he obtained his bachelor's and master's degrees. And he then pursued 2 PhD programs, one in the University of South Bohemia in the Czech Republic, and a second one in Michigan State University in the USA. He has over 12 years of experience as the state specialist on forest entomology, with extensive experience with science and policy consultation to forestry and fruit industries, and consulting on forest health for governments in the US, Europe, Asia, and in the United Nations. And today we will be discussing his PLOS ONE Lab Protocol article entitled Collecting and Preserving Bark and Ambrosia Beetles, and the associated protocol in protocols.io. Jiri, again, thank you so much for carving some time to talk to us. I would like to begin with a brief explanation on what the protocol is about, how you use it, and why it is relevant.
The protocol is about collecting and preserving bark and ambrosia beetles and their associated biota. That means typically fungi and the tree hosts and bacteria and so on. Now, bark and ambrosia beetles are the most important forest pests on the planet currently. They are responsible for the largest tree die-offs in the history caused by insects. And as such, they're really important. They're also really amazing as a biological subject for study. There are more than 6,000 species, and we don't even know how many fungi are associated with them. And it is a booming field of study. Now we have something like 400 publications on this topic every year. So that's like one a day, essentially. And no one's able to catch up. And so I feel that it is really important to provide the growing community some of the fundamental tools for sampling these bugs and their fungi and doing it right.
So, because this is a published protocol, the question is, were there anything before reported that you had to optimize to make this final protocol? And if that is the case, why the previous protocol didn't work for you?
So there were protocols, many protocols on trapping these insects using various different traps and lures. There is a whole industry about that. There are a number of companies that provide these lures and traps and so on. But there are issues with that. Particularly, those are geared towards economically important species, which represent about 1% of the diversity. If you want to collect the actual community of these forest insects, you're out of luck with the contemporary most commonly used traps and lures, because you really get the ones for which the lures are developed. You don't get the rest of the community, the 99%. That's trapping. Collecting by hand from the colonized trees and branches and roots and seeds and so on is a whole different story. There was nothing published. People did it 2 ways, either from experience or a cowboy style. I'd go out and collect the way I can, which usually resulted in people using a knife, stabbing into a tree, prying the bug out and squashing it. The most common approach to collecting bark beetles without prior experience is what I just said, that people are using whatever sharp object they have and mostly damaging the insect. And so we wanted to step back a little bit and say, folks, we as a community have dozens of years of experience with this. Let's be a little bit careful and deliberate. This is the number of tools that you need. The most important message that I would like to highlight in our protocol is a little bit philosophical, but it means that you don't try to get the bug, the beetle, out of wood. What you are supposed to try is to get the wood away from the beetle. Slowly, patiently, deliberately, so you end up with an intact specimen that is alive, well preserved, morphologically intact, that's important, and contains the symbiotic fungus.
So I understand that your motivation to create this public protocol and have it published in the platform is to provide a booming field, a standardized way in which to collect the majority, if not all, of the communities.
That's correct.
But once you put all this effort into creating this resource, what was the motivation to have it peer-reviewed?
That's an interesting question. There are two motivations. One is that when you write something up from within your team or from your own memory or with your standard colleagues, you don't realize the blind spots that you have. And there are some logical steps that you don't even realize you're not describing, where people who have not had the experience, they don't quite connect that. So that's one thing, the feedback, critical. Second was that going with the publisher, with the platform that has been created, it has grown legs. It's much more portable, the protocol. And all we can do, instead of writing a long email to every collaborator around the world, we'll just give them the link. That's all.
And could you please elaborate on the feedback that you received in this case and whether the reviewer feedback shaped in any way the final version of your protocol?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we got feedback from people who have some experience with bark beetles and ambrosia beetles, maybe not as in depth. And that was helpful because that allowed us to revise the text and the images so that the end user can understand what we are talking about, which I always say that conversational communication has to be both ways. If it's just from me to you, it's not a conversation. So we're grateful for the feedback.
And based on your research and what the protocol is about, I can imagine that the protocol, it's a tool that you probably use every day.
Oh, yeah.
Is there anything along the development of this final document and this final protocol that you tried but didn't work?
That's 20 years of trial and error. Yes,
that's what I
many
imagine.
times, and especially with the traps, with the different baits, we're constantly developing. We're not at the end. There are new invasive species arriving to our doorstep. There are new bioregions where we explore these beetles, where the standard techniques aren't capturing the full diversity. So we're optimizing all the time. It did not stop with this publication.
And with these 20 years of experience, can you tell the listener and the reader what, in your opinion, are the most critical steps for a successful collection? Yeah.
The first and most important step is to find the right environment, because these are actually really interesting insects. They are, you can say, they're typically rare in any regular forest, orchard, wherever you're looking for them, except when they appear on a suitable host, and then they are super abundant. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for the right microhabitat. And once you find that, then there are beetles always. But it takes 90% of time is looking for the microhabitat. The rest 10% is pulling out the beetles in masses. And looking for the microhabitat is not in the protocol. That is specific to each beetle, that is specific to each ecosystem, that is specific to each application, whether you're looking for a pest in a grove or whether you're looking for a beetle that's causing an outbreak in mountains, or whether you're looking for representatives of a generic general beetle community in the rainforest, that really depends on the question you're asking. That's why it's not in the protocol.
I see. And you just briefly mentioned that the protocol is a live process, that you keep optimizing as new species comes, or if you decide to extend to branch your research probably to new regions. Mm-hmm. Can you give us a sneak peek of where you think or where have you taken your protocol since the time of publication? Is there any changes that you have made that might not have been documented yet as a new version?
You know, one small thing that we just discovered recently was we're futzing around with different types of lights and how you position them and such for light trapping. The fact that you can, in fact, collect bark and ambrosia beetles with light has been fairly revolutionary. No one has done that before. And now we're exploring different types of lights. And we have discovered lights and settings that are just recent and they're not in the protocol. Specifically little UV lights, lithium battery powered, that you pack in your backpack, and you can borrow a sheet from a hotel and you can do that anywhere. Before, you would take a big generator, a mercury vapor lamp, and that kind of stuff, impossible to travel with. Now we know better. We know how to do lightweight collecting. That's simple example. Where I think a more profound difference is emerging between how we used to do it before and how we are going to do it later is on the international collaboration dimension. The Nagoya Protocol and the Convention on Biological Diversity is a very complicated development around the world that is making the complexity of the physical collection to be a minor issue compared to the big complexity of setting up a legal, mutually beneficial collaboration and a mutual beneficial exchange of material. Setting up a material transfer agreement now, what 5 years ago would be nothing, can take a year and can lead nowhere and can get you in trouble, depending on which country, which two countries you're dealing with. That is not in the protocol, and that is now developing rapidly, and we don't understand where it's going. But I feel that we as a community of biodiversity researchers have to step up our game and get more active in this before the doors are completely closed on mutual exchange of biodiversity samples.
And yeah, that's very interesting, like the social and political angle of the kind of research that you do. And now I wanted to go a little bit back to the idea of the peer review and having the paper. If you can tell us about the significance of having this article published for your career.
I'm not sure that it's for my career, but I'm hoping it's for the ease of work for many colleagues, where people don't have to reinvent the wheel. My students, for example, postdocs and others in our team, you can see how it works. I send them a link and they go down through it and they have all the tools right there and they know what to pack. People with whom we collaborate overseas, same thing. We send them a link and they choose the parts that they like. They ignore the parts they don't like or they're inapplicable, and it just simplifies the conversation dramatically.
And I like how you define it as a portable element.
That is what it is.
Rewrite is just a link that you can easily share, and people can take from it whatever they think it's going to be useful for them, for their own research, and tweak it to their own purposes if it's necessary.
Absolutely.
Jiri, I think it's been a really illustrating conversation. I want to wrap up, but before we do that, I want to know if there's anything that you would like to add that we haven't touched or we haven't mentioned.
The one thing I would like to say is go out and collect beetles, because it's an art before it becomes science. And it's not easy to learn those kinds of techniques. And then what's even more complicated and more important is to develop the appreciation and love for this. And I really worry about the loss of the sort of the hunting instinct for these incredible things in around us that is being lost in academia. I hope that we could infuse the next generation of scientists with that interest in understanding and collecting and sampling around us, because that's what we are standing on, the foundation of having sampled biodiversity. All our research stands on that, and I am feeling the pressure, like you said, political, social, and so on, that feels sort of outdated, or that it feels inappropriate, or that it feels too complicated, and so it's easy to stay inside in the lab. And I'm saying no, that would be a step backwards. Now is the time to go out and look at what's happening to biodiversity and sample it properly.
Well, thank you very much, Jiri. I'll let you go, and I'm really thankful for
Thank you for your interest. Bye.